I think that you get quite a mixed picture depending on whom you talk to, depending on social and educational background, and very much depending on generation. You do still find a widespread appreciation regarding the opportunities that are associated with the reform path. On the other hand, you do have a lot of anxiety in Chinese society, and I think that the book of Gerard Lemos gives a wonderful account of that. People fear for their employment in a very competitive labor market. Children fear for higher education. People in informal employment, for example, fear for their health because they are not secured, or at least not very well. You have a lot of elderly people that are left behind in the countryside. They are alone, but of course they depend on the remittances of their children. I think what has changed a little bit over the last years is that the notion of gratitude that has been quite prevalent some 5 years ago has dwindled in favor of a more demanding stance.
What's happened in China is it's become, in the last 20 or 30 years, a much more unequal society. And while many people have got a lot better off, there are a lot of people for whom much less has changed. And I think they have, those people at the bottom do feel left out and left behind. And for a while, I think they believed that eventually reform would benefit everyone. But I think now they're starting to question that. And because in the Mao era they were promised what they called an iron rice bowl, they do feel they've lost something through the reform process, although there are many winners.
You have the urban-rural divide, which together with the household registration system, the hukou, has established some form of kind of internal citizenship status that allocates resources very unevenly depending on rural or urban descent. As of today, there are a lot of legislations, regulations that explicitly outlaw discrimination, that stipulate equal treatment, for example, in the realm of compulsory education or also social security. But the one problem is the implementation of these laws and policies. The other line of inequalities is regional inequalities that have been amplified by this phased approach. I think they have done quite some improvement in this regard. For example, favorable policies first only looked at the coastal areas, now they look at the central areas, and soon they will look, or have already started to look at the western areas. What is still missing is some kind of fiscal equalization policy. You have some steps leading in this direction, but I think to have an actual fiscal equalization policy would be an important thing to have.
The policies that have produced reform and transformation, of course, have produced a lot of wealth, but they haven't really distributed that wealth fairly, and the old forms of social protection have disappeared. So the particular things I think the leadership in China needs to address, they need to address the one-child policy, because that's making people feel in their old age very lonely and isolated. They need to address the situation of migrants from the countryside to the city. They need to put in place some basic social safety net on healthcare, on social security and so on. And people need to feel that if people treat them unfairly, if officials treat them unfairly or they're corrupt, that they can get justice. And if they could make those kind of changes, then I think people would feel that they had more ordinary people, poor people, would feel that they had more stake in the future.
United Kingdom, also United States, are actually doing a marvelous job in producing very good research on China. And of course you find good researchers on China in Germany too. But I think we have some catching up to do. Turning to China now, I think that they also need to take the international their internationalization process one step further. I think it would be very good if Chinese universities and institutes would find a way to encourage their researchers to publish more internationally, also those researchers that represent different approaches than those that we find in the international journals today.
I think we need to have much more information about what ordinary Chinese people themselves think. We have lots of statistics, but China's a very big country, and what's true in one place is not true in another place. We need to have much more authentic, on the ground information about what Chinese people are thinking and feeling. Too much statistics and too big picture kind of analysis of China won't really help us to develop approaches that really benefit ordinary people all across China.